Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. The Intercept has been reporting an almost unbelievable story about how the Environmental Protection Agency has covered up the potential risks of dozens of chemicals. And I say it's almost unbelievable because their reporting is backed up by formal whistleblower complaints, as well as their statements, internal emails, meeting summaries, screenshots they've provided. There's even secret recordings. So here's the deal. According to 4 EPA scientists, both managers and staff members at this government-run organization that's literally tasked with the sole job of keeping us and our planet safe, these same people either minimized or omitted evidence showing that certain chemicals posed potential risk to our health. In fact, some of these chemicals that they pushed through while ignoring their potential side effects were shown to cause neurological damage, birth defects, sometimes even cancer. So the whistleblowers say that not only did some of these EPA officials violate the Toxic Substances Control Act, but the scientists who attempted to follow the law, who attempted to save lives, they faced retribution at the agency. They made it very difficult for them to work there. They made it very uncomfortable, or they just moved them, as you're going to hear. So in addition to sharing these stories and their evidence with reporters at The Intercept, these scientists also gave this information to California Congressman Ro Khanna, who chairs the House Committee on Oversight and Reform. So that was just recently. The 4 scientists also say that they first, though, before they went to the press, before they went to a congressman, they went to their EPA colleagues and supervisors, and they filed complaints with the Inspector General who oversees the EPA, as well as the Office of Science Integrity. Yet months passed, nothing happened. They waited. They filed all these complaints. They told people in positions of authority, nothing happened. And the scientists say that because these alterations of their work pose such a potential risk to human health, they felt they had no choice. They had to go public with this story. So just to give you an idea of how serious this is, there's a scientist named Elise Osterweel. She told The Intercept that she was testing a chemical in February of this year. And during the animal studies on rats, they found that when the rats were exposed to just one single dose of this chemical, they became lethargic, they lost weight, they had trouble moving, and some of them even became comatose or died. One single exposure. So when Osterweel brought this to the attention of one of her supervisors, the supervisor kept telling her, look at the data, look at the data. And then she said to Osterweel, quote, why don't you take a look at the actual study data again, and maybe the hazards will go away. So Osterweel said, obviously, it was clear what she wanted her to do, what she expected of her. And understand what her supervisor means when she says, look at the studies. She's not saying, look at our studies, look at our own research. She's referring to studies conducted by the manufacturers of these chemicals and products. Most people don't realize this, but the EPA and even the FDA uses manufacturer studies. They use the producer of the product gets to submit their own studies to these government agencies to help determine if their products are safe for consumers. Sometimes that's all they use. And if that sounds almost too insane to believe, because obviously, if you just spent millions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars, creating a product, putting it through your own studies, doing R&D and everything else, and now you're going to put out money for marketing, of course you're going to say your product is safe. And if this literally just sounds like too bizarre to you to be true, I urge you to go grab a copy of a book called Altered Genes, Twisted Truth. It was written by an attorney called Stephen Drucker. I'll leave a link to the book in the description box below, but he actually sued the FDA and received thousands of pages of discovery of material, which included internal memos, which revealed that the FDA helped to cover up the dangers of genetically modified organisms, which are now, by the way, in nearly every packaged food on our store shelves in the United States. They're consumed by nearly 100% of farm animals. If you're eating traditional animals, chicken, turkey, beef, pork, you're eating GMOs. I don't care how hard you try to avoid them. They're in everything. And people eat it multiple times a day. So this is what our governmental agencies have become. This is thanks to greed and our revolving door between the government and big business, which leads me to the next example. In another instance involving an EPA chemist named Martin Phillips, his findings that a mixture of compounds caused miscarriages and birth defects in mice was completely stripped. It was completely removed from the EPA's official assessment. And then they later partially added some of his information back to the report. Now, how did that happen? The revolving door, of course. After Phillips reported his findings, the manufacturer of that product complained. And then they sent in a ringer. They sent in a revolving door shill to change the findings. There was a woman who used to work at the EPA, and then she was now, during this time when this took place, was working for the chemical manufacturer. What a shock. Oh my gosh. So she called a meeting. This woman who used to work at the FDA calls a meeting with some of Phillips' colleagues and his supervisor, who of course she knew from her time working there. And what do you know? Phillips was conveniently and obviously intentionally excluded from this meeting. And voila, Phillips says that an alternative assessment of this product was uploaded to the EPA computer system the very next day after this meeting. And oh, what do you know? It did not contain Phillips' findings about the birth defects and miscarriages. So just how toxic was this product? So Phillips performed the calculations, and he calculated the exposure of this chemical cocktail to exceed EPA guidelines by 15,000 times the allowed limit. Not 15, 15,000 times. It was 15,000 times over the legal safety limit as per the EPA's own standards. Yet Phillips says that the second assessment that the EPA wrote stated that this mixture was not likely to pose a harm to humans. And then they just simply advise users, oh, wear a dust mask when you use it. That'll help. 15,000 times over the allowed safety limit, guys, and they tell people to just wear a mask. And this just happened. This just happened last year. So this second assessment was finalized and submitted in August of 2020. But these aren't the only two cases. These are not the only two instances in which human health was just completely brushed aside, completely ignored to increase the profit margins for these vile, polluting, dangerous chemical manufacturers. The other two whistleblower scientists shared equally disturbing accounts of how their work was altered or completely removed, completely scrapped to appease their corporate overlords. One of them, a scientist who holds, by the way, 3 board certifications in toxicology, think he knows what he's doing? He was literally yelled at by his superior after he found that a product could cause cancer and developmental issues. So he told The Intercept, quote, he basically was siding with the company, shouting at me that the company went apeshit when they saw the document. And in document, meaning his findings. So this scientist, as were the other scientists, he was transferred to an alternative department after it became clear that he wasn't going to play ball, just like some of the others that were transferred. He wasn't going to lie for these manufacturers of these poisonous chemicals. And they make clear that these issues did not start with the Trump administration. You know, these cases, these instances that they're referring to happened over the course of the last few years, but this has been going on for a long, long time. And it just continued during Trump's presidency. And get this, in another act of retaliation, the whistleblowers' names were revealed. So now their managers know who's behind these allegations and these reports. Their attorney said, quote, "The fact that the EPA released our clients' names is inappropriate and troubling. They've been put in an incredibly uncomfortable situation. This gives the managers the chance to circle the wagons trying to go after them." Now, in response to the Intercept's reporting, the EPA issued a statement denying it, of course, or trying to cover their ass, I should say. And they said, quote, "This administration is committed to investigating alleged violations of scientific integrity. It is critical that all EPA decisions are informed by rigorous scientific information and standards. As one of his first acts as administrator, Administrator Reagan issued a memorandum outlining concrete steps to reinforce the agency's commitment to science." Yeah, well, we'll see. And understand this, guys. This is one of the reasons that people don't trust the government and why we have such vaccine hesitancy in our country. As I mentioned before, our government allows the pervasive use of GMOs in our food supply. Yet something like 70 plus other countries around the world have either partially or fully banned not just their use, but they don't even allow them to grow because there's such a problem with the chemicals that are sprayed on them, creating super weeds that they cannot get rid of. And that these seeds are then spread to other crops that are non-GMO. And we wonder why cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disease, heart disease, all these other ailments and diseases continue to skyrocket. Yet people are pouring trillions of dollars into research and drugs. Every week you hear about this walk and that walk, and we're going to help to bring about awareness, heart disease awareness, cancer awareness. Is anybody not aware of heart disease? Is anybody not aware of cancer? Any adult human being, are they seriously not aware of these things? Can we all stop walking in circles, literally, to promote awareness of these things and to raise money for research when all we have to do is look at what the hell we're being poisoned with on a daily basis? Seriously, I'm not saying that's 100% it. I'm not saying genetics don't play a factor, but there are literally scientific studies showing that it plays a 5 to 10% factor. The rest of it is lifestyle choices and toxins that we're exposed to. And is it a coincidence that many food manufacturers purportedly own stock in pharmaceutical companies? Things like this, and the mistrust it sows in the American public is how we ended up with a con artist demagogue like Donald Trump. Like I said, I'll leave a link to the book that I mentioned down below in the description box. Please check it out. I urge all of you. This kind of stuff is going on all the time. We have to ask questions. We have to be more aware, and we have to have a healthy sense of curiosity and skepticism, because these are just human beings, and what they want is a job. When their administration gets kicked out of power, they're looking for their next gig. Just like this woman who went from working at the FDA to working for this chemical manufacturer, and she goes in, and because she has strings that she can pull. She has relationships. She gets, allegedly, this report pulled. How many people, how many babies, the most sacred, the most innocent, the most vulnerable in our society are being put at risk for greed? It has to end. Anyway, thanks for listening. Take care. I will talk with you soon.